Hi, welcome. We are live in the WBMS iCenter study room. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe, and turn on the notifications. And today we are interviewing the general manager and the host of The Splash from Civic Center TV named Dave Scott. How are you doing today?
Max, I'm doing great. Thank you very much for the invitation to be
You're
here.
welcome. What is your schedule like when at work?
Well, that is a really good question. It's different every day. The Splash I host live at 9:30 in the morning. So that's the most structured part of my day. So I usually get in 8 o'clock at the latest, and I prepare the show before I go on. The show's a half an hour program of all very local information, and I source most of that information from social media and just other contacts that I have. So I like to put it together the morning before I go on the air. So it takes me maybe half an hour to an hour to put it together, get it all assembled. So I go on at 9:30, so I like to get there about 8. And then when the show's over at 10 o'clock, then it's a variety of different things, depending on what I'm working on. But this is not a 9 to 5 job, I'll tell you that much.
How long are you there till every day in the studio?
I'm in the field a lot too. So, like we're shooting this on a phone. I shoot a lot of my stuff on a phone too. So I could quite frequently be working till 10, 11 o'clock at night. I've got things that I want to shoot. And then I also have meetings and other administrative responsibilities that I need to take care of during the day. And as a general manager of Civic Center TV, there's a lot of meetings that happen because we're part of the 4 communities, West Bloomfield, Kego Harbor, Orchard Lake, and Sylvan Lake. And there's a commission that I work for, so they meet often in the evening. So some days are long.
Do you film the Splash on a camera?
So the way we actually do the Splash, I have a studio, and we use multiple cameras, and there's a control room there that we have an operator in there, a producer. His name is Jared, and Jared switches between the cameras, and then also will bring up any of the other video. We call it B-roll, right? So that might be some supporting video. It might be a YouTube video. It might be a still image. And then he puts all that together. So I've got 2 cameras in front of me, some monitors in front of me so I can see what Jared is up to. I got a thing in my ear called an IFB so I can hear the audio. And so Jared can tell me anything that I need to know to interact with him, and then I'm wearing a microphone.
I have both of those things. Not obviously in person right now, but I have a Rodecaster Pro as a mixer at my house where I film stuff, so I have an IFB to hear that.
Right.
And then one of those lavalier microphones.
Well, it really makes a big difference if you're shooting video with a phone, which is very commonplace at the highest level of production now. Having really good audio makes sense. And when we built Civic Center TV, the latest iteration of all of our equipment, about 12 years ago, we bought big cameras and microphones and all, but you see the TV guy with a camera on his shoulder. And the funny thing is at a press conference maybe 3 years ago, I saw one of the photographers from Fox 2 Detroit shooting on his phone, his news story. And I went up and I talked to him. I said, "What are you doing? You shooting something for your kids or something? You can't be shooting this for TV tonight." I said, No, I'm shooting my package that's going to run on Fox 2 tonight on my phone. And when I saw that a major market television station was shooting on the phone, I was convinced that we could too. So when the West Bloomfield girls basketball team went to the state finals, Tyler Keefe, my colleague at Civic Center TV, and I were there. We were shooting everything on our phones, and we're the only ones, but the quality is really good, and it just makes it easier.
Do you like filming on a camera better or a phone?
I almost never use a conventional video camera anymore, because I always have my phone with me. And I don't always know when I'm going to be doing something. Like today, today, as we're speaking, there was a telecommunications problem at the West Mifflin Township Hall. So as soon as I'm done here, I'm going to run over there and put a story together. Who knows when things are going to break out? I kept my gear with me earlier this week because we had a threat of bad weather. And I thought, well, I might be driving down the road, there might be a tornado. So if I have my phone with me, as I always do, it's easier. But to answer your question, I love shooting with my phone. And I shoot almost everything with it.
Do you have a script with the splash?
You know, that is a great question. And I've been doing this show for, I don't know, maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 months. And there were other people that did it before me. I don't put together a specific word by word script and have, in television we have these teleprompters, which we can have the script. And when you're watching the news tonight or CNN or whatever, you see the person looking right at the camera like I am right now, and they're getting every word perfect. Well, that's because they have their script right on the camera, right in front of them. Mm-hmm. So I do have an outline for the show that I write up, but it just gives me all the bullet points. And some items, there'll be a script that I like to read verbatim from that. But most of the time, it's like, do the open, do the weather, go to this story. Here's the associated video that I want Jared to run. And it's just an outline so we both know what's coming up. But no, not a word for word script.
What is it like to be the general manager?
Well, I got to tell you, I like it. I'm the general manager of Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. So I went to school, right where you're going to school right now. Just it was in the previous building, right? The Orchard Lake Middle School.
Yes.
I went to West Bloomfield High School. I graduated in 1977. So I went away and did some other projects and came back to the community about 10, 15 years ago. I grew up here. I have a big commitment to the community. My mother before me was on the school board and involved in television. And so I love being the general manager of Civic Center TV. It lets me stay in touch and be a vibrant part of this great community. And some people would say at this point in my career where I've worked on some of the biggest radio and television stations in Michigan. But I love doing this. It's very local. Maybe our audiences aren't quite as big, but it doesn't really matter to me how many people are watching. I know that people love what we're doing. It's very local. We have a very loyal audience, and it's a lot of fun.
How long have you been the general manager for?
I've been the general manager at Civic Center TV, I want to say 12 years now. 10, 11, 12 years, somewhere in there. Don't hold me on that specific date.
What are some of your jobs as general manager?
Well, I'm responsible ultimately for everything that we do. So we are a municipal television operation. So that means we serve the communities, West Bloomfield, Keego Harbor, Orchard Lake, and Sylvan Lake. So my main job is to make sure that we're doing the very best we can to be those communities' television channel. Whatever we need to do to fulfill that obligation and responsibility, I do. So with my staff, I don't do it all, of course. So make plans, hire people, manage our staff, work on the technology, work with our technical people to make sure it's all working, and then communicate back to the community and to the elected officials that we ultimately work for what we're doing and what kind of progress we're making. It's a very hands-on operation. There aren't 50 of us working over there. So the more direct answer is I get to do play-by-play on the West Bloomfield High School football games that we cover. I get to do the splash in the morning. I write a lot of content. So I'm doing a lot of day-to-day operational things that a reporter would be doing, and then managing the operation.
What made you want to be in a station for more local communities rather than national or for or states?
Again, I grew up here, so I really enjoy working on this product in this community. And we kind of have a saying, if you will, that every story we treat like it's the Super Bowl. It'd be really easy to say, hey, I'm doing a very small localized story, maybe 50, 100, 200, 500 people are going to watch it. I'm not talking to millions of people. And the significance of what we're doing is certainly not at the same level with what happens in New York, Washington, and the major media markets. But that said, I think, especially in this age with social media, what we call micro broadcasting is really exciting. And for me, it's, at this point in my career, it's more how we're getting it done in the execution of the work than necessarily how many people are watching it. That said, we do big numbers. We have, our social media, our website has over 10,000 people checking it out every month. We publish to the web, which has a lot of people watching, and then our 2 television channels and our radio station. So, listen, it's just great to have an opportunity to broadcast, and so I'm fortunate.
What are some of your favorite things about each of the communities you broadcast in?
I wouldn't say I have a favorite community that I cover. West Bloomfield is the biggest of the 4 communities that we cover. There's more action there. There's more activity there. But Sylvan Lake and Keegle Harbor, they're wonderful communities. They have extremely loyal residents. They're very passionate about the communities. And so there's always something interesting going on there. There's going to be a big road construction project in Keegle Harbor, the Sylvan Lake Community Center. There's amazing things going on there. But in all honesty, probably the most fun thing I get to do is to be the play-by-play host of the West Bloomfield High School football team.
Do you have holiday parties with the Lakes FM or Civic Center TV?
Not as much as we used to, but yes, of course, we get together. We work very hard. Okay, Tyler Keefe, who is the other person, the associate general manager who hosts the MegaCast, works extraordinarily hard. He gets there at 9 o'clock in the morning, and a lot of nights he's there until 9 o'clock at night. So we see each other so much that we don't have to get together on holidays, but certainly around the holiday season, we always have some kind of a group team gathering to get together and enjoy each other's company.
Video, when you're not doing the MegaCast or the Splash or any of those special events, what's happening on the Lakes FM channel?
So we've kind of gone back and forth with that. And at the point that we brought Lakes FM into our operation, we were primarily a music station. So we programmed the radio station to play music 24 hours a day. And most of the radio stations you listen to now, the DJs aren't really live in the studio. They go in and they record their parts. So, the part between the records or between the music, call them records anymore, is all pre-recorded and assembled. So we had the same technology there. So we did that for the most part. But then we realized that there was no unique offering that we were really offering on the radio. So right now, as of today, we are in 100% simulcast mode. So anything that you hear on the radio is also being broadcast on Civic Center TV. And given the fact that we do a lot of local programming every day for a small community channel. We do an hour and a half of local programming Monday through Friday with the Splash from 9:30 to 10 and the MegaCast from 10 to 11. And then a lot of other programming in our municipal meetings. And if you're driving around and you tune into Lakes FM, we feel that you might be more interested in hearing something that is unique to our community rather than playing the same songs you can hear on all the other radio stations. So that's what we do. We call it our unique value proposition. What is it that we can do on that radio station that you won't find anywhere else? And so we, right now, are running the simulcast. I think when we get into summer and there's less stuff going on, and there are less, there's just that the business activity of the community slows down and people are spending more time recreationally. Maybe we'll put big blocks of music for people that are going to be on the lakes and in their backyards. But for right now, 100% simulcast of Civic Center TV.
Who films the school board meetings in the West Bloomfield area?
So Tyler directs that, but the way we do that is we have cameras that we take to the high school, and then we use the fiber infrastructure to bring all of those signals back to our control room, which is on Walnut Lake Road, and we switch it all from there. So with all of the communication network that we have, we don't need to take everything out there. We don't have to have our whole crew. Our crew is actually back in our studio running all of that. But yes, we're responsible for the school district's board meetings, and then all of the meetings for the municipalities of West Bloomfield, Kego Harbor, and Sylvan Lakes. A lot of meetings every week.
It's fascinating what technology's turned into.
Well, and especially not to get too deep in the woods, or too deep in the weeds, as they say in the technology. West Bloomfield Township installed a fiber network that connects most of their buildings now. And you've got one here in the school district as well, fiber that connects all of the buildings together. And we can send video over fiber. We always have been able to, even 10 years ago. But here's the big thing that's really cool now. Now we can stream live video right over the public internet. So we're working on building new gear right now. So if I want to do that West Bloomfield Township board meeting and I want to have 2 or 3 cameras there and I don't have a fiber to plug it into, I can just connect it to the internet and we can remote control that. We're contemplating and running our West Bloomfield High School football games from our control room. It's a lot of work on Friday nights. We take our cameras, we take our instant replay gear, we take it all out, video switchers, audio mixers, all the stuff that would be in a big truck if you were covering the NFL. We got to haul all that stuff out and set it up. So we're working on new technology right now where we can leave it all back in the studio and just take a box and plug the cameras in and control it from back there.
Do you have anxiety while or before you're anchoring or reporting?
Not so much anymore. It's only natural. People are watching. And public speaking isn't the most comfortable thing for a lot of people to do. But over time, more of my anxiety has come from making sure I have an intelligent question to ask. Okay, you're doing a really good job. Every time that I've finished my answer, you've been right there with another question. I think at this point in my career, I'm very comfortable being on the air. I don't get nervous about being on the air. But if you don't have a question in your mind, I know you've got some notes and I have notes in front of me, but a lot of time I'll be doing an interview without notes, right? And if I don't know in my head what the next question is, when that person finishes answering their question, it's hard to ask a precise question. So it's a great question you ask about the anxiety of a reporter. And when you don't have that question in your pocket ready to ask, if there's any anxiety, it's like, well, what am I going to ask next?
How do you deal with your anxiety if you have it?
Try to use this to my benefit. Being nervous isn't always a bad thing. In fact, I think if you're doing something that is very important and critical and you really care about the quality of the work that you're doing, it's natural to be nervous. So the challenge is to let that nervous energy be your ally and use it to your benefit and not let it disable you. And I would say with broadcasting, like any other skill, the more you practice, the better you get at it. First time out, going to be a lot more nervous. You're like me, you've been doing this for 40 years. It gets to be, you learn how to take those negatives and turn them into a positive.
It's been how long? It's been, I think, about 10 months almost of me doing interviews, and this is my close to 40th.
Well, is the 40th easier than the first?
Yes. I mean, it was easy to do, but I think the nerves of not knowing what I was going to expect going in from starting this to getting more comfortable, I don't think I knew exactly what was going to happen, what was I going to be doing. But it was still a great interview, and I had fun.
Well, and some of that, the onus is on the person you're interviewing too, because you can interview somebody and they might not do what I'm doing and give you complete answers. You might ask them a question, and they might give you one of those 2-word answers, and then it's like, oh, now what do I do? Right?
That's why I kind of say my time really depends on how in depth are the answers. Like, I could probably go through this list in 12 minutes, but it's how the questions get answered is how it becomes the longer.
Well, you're doing a couple of things really well. The first thing that the most experienced broadcasters do, and they usually make this mistake when they don't really have a question, is they'll ask the question and then they'll answer it too. Well, that doesn't make any sense. If you're going to ask the question, get out of the way and let your guest answer it. And sometimes when somebody doesn't really have a question in their hip pocket, they will be going from here to here to here, and then they'll finally get to their question. Your questions have been very precise and very direct, and you've not gotten in the way with answering the question that you asked. It's crazy. It sounds like nobody would do that. The most experienced broadcaster, go watch TV tonight and you'll see people ask questions and answer it themselves and hardly give the guest any opportunity. And you are working off a list of questions here, but you also are smart in that you want to listen to what your guest is saying, and that may provoke some thought and some other questions you might want to ask. So the hard part is, while you're doing your interview, listen in closely enough so you can interact successfully, yet be able to stick with your game plan too. So it's just a careful mix.
Thank you. And when I first started, it was it was almost exactly to the script, nothing outside of it. Because I think that was more a comfort level. I didn't know what I was doing at the time, so I didn't want to mess it up or say something that I didn't want to by mistake.
Well, and you're doing long-form interviews here. This is not a 2-minute interview. And the longer you spend on the air in a segment, or if you do a show like I do, a half an hour every day, or like Tyler does with a megacast, he does the worst, or like Tyler does, he does an hour every day. You can't hide behind the camera if you're doing an hour. Your natural personality is going to come out. You can't fake it for that long, right? If you're doing just a couple of minutes, you can. And so, just have fun, right? Be yourself.
Do you have to wear makeup when you're doing your broadcast?
I should. I don't. Okay? I'm not a television person. I do the best I can. I came up through radio. Okay? I'm not your prototypical television anchor. But, I try to make myself look nice and keep my hair cut most days and, look good. We try to get the lighting and everything right in our studio. I don't wear makeup. I would look a little bit better if I did. It's not that I am uncomfortable wearing makeup. I haven't gotten that far with it yet. Maybe I'll start.
What is your advice on how to deal with anxiety when you have it?
Just keep practicing, and the more you do this, the more you'll get comfortable. It doesn't hurt to be well prepared too. If you are prepared and you have a game plan A, B, and C, then your anxiety is going to be a little bit lower. But one of the greatest interviewers of all time, Larry King, who was on CNN back in the very early days and was at that time one of the prototypical talk show hosts. He would never research his guests in great detail before he had them on. And most of the people that he would have on were authors. So Larry King, who was one of the original hosts on CNN and did a radio show before that, was in his day thought to be one of the best interviewers. And he prepared himself, but if he was having an author on, he wouldn't read the book. And he said, well, if I read the book, then I would ask all the questions that someone who read the book would ask. And I want to ask the questions that my typical viewer would want asked, and they don't know anything about it. So he would prepare, but he wouldn't research deeply. And I kind of like that. That's kind of the way I approach things too.
What is your favorite thing to anchor or report on?
Well, I guess I don't really know, but things that I guess with anybody it would be things that I'm personally interested in. So yesterday we had a bad weather day. The day we were recording this, yesterday was a bad weather day. I'm a weather junkie, so I had a lot of fun. I really, it was a very easy show for me to prepare because I shared with the audience, my weather apps, my weather web pages, all the weather tips. So I like weather. I'm a pilot. I like aviation, so anything having to do with aviation. I'm into sports, so it's fun to talk about things related to sports. But I guess the one thing that I'm fortunate in is that it's very easy for me to find interest in a subject that I might not have been exposed to in the past. So new things, I guess, would be the other component to that answer.
What's the easiest thing to anchor or report on?
Easiest, I would say it's always easier to report on something when the person I'm interviewing or reporting on is cooperative. If I feel like they're fighting me, it gets to be a lot harder. Now, in my environment at Civic Center TV, it's easy most of the time because we're telling good stories about local people doing great things. And in the greater West Bloomfield area, we have some really amazing people. Greg Flynn, our fire chief, Mike Patton, our police chief, Steve Kaplan, our township supervisor, Lisa Graff here at your school. All really super easy interviews and great people to talk to. I'm not on my beat, in New York City covering Donald Trump's indictment and trying to talk to people that hate the media and don't want to talk to me. So in that, given the kind of things I report on, most of the people I encounter and talk to, they want to be on TV and they want to make it easy for me.
What is the hardest thing to anchor or report on?
Things that breaking news can be a challenge. So if something happens at the last minute, you don't have time to prepare. We may not have all the technical side of things worked out really well. In all honesty, in my current role, to be direct and honest with you, I think reporting on things that I have a political opinion on, but just in my current role, I really can't share it. If I was doing a flame-throwing talk radio show, which I've done in the past in my career, then I could say, hey, what they're doing is really bad and spend a whole hour talking about it. I'm kind of a cheerleader for the community, so I don't do it. Do I not like being that cheerleader? No, I love being the cheerleader for this community. But, there are days when maybe having a little more editorial freedom would be good.
Who is your favorite person to work with?
I'm really glad you asked me that question. I have an amazing team with Tyler Keefe and Jared Clark and Calvin Brown and Dave Alberry, who's my executive director of the Cable Commission. I have a great opportunity to work with the most talented team in community television in the country.
When did you start your news anchoring and reporting?
As a junior at West Bloomfield High School in 1976. My first job was an internship working for a local radio station. I was 16 years old and I was covering news stories for one of the Detroit radio stations. A long time ago.
What are you currently working on?
Certainly covering West Bloomfield, trying to do it in an interesting, informative, and up-to-date way. It isn't, it's difficult to produce a half an hour of live television every day and have it be relevant and up-to-date and current. So I'm still refining that. But I would say relative to this conversation, that's my main project.
What is your education?
graduate of West Bloomfield High School. A couple of credits away from graduating at Grand Valley. I went to school there and was very close to graduating and was offered an amazing radio job back here in Detroit. And I left school right before I graduated, and I said, well, I'm going to go back and finish that at some point. And unfortunately, I never did. In our industry, being able to do this is a combination of education and commitment and experience. And my career, not really all that unusual in our industry. Most of what I've learned in the field, executing my job.
And the final question I have is, what is your career history and roles?
But I started out here in West Bloomfield as a student at West Bloomfield High School. In 1974, we put 89.3 Lakes FM on the radio. Dave Alberry, who is the executive director of the commission, was the high school broadcast teacher at West Bloomfield High School. So I started there on the air. My brother was an engineer at WDRQ Radio, so he helped me get an internship there. I was working at WBLD making tapes of my shows and giving them to all the local radio stations. But because they already knew me at WDRQ, I submitted my tapes. And my senior year, they offered me a fill-in job on the radio working at WDRQ, which is unheard of. People at the beginning of their careers don't usually get an opportunity to get on the air in a big market. Usually you got to go somewhere like Alpena up north, right? So I started my broadcast career there, went to college in Grand Rapids and continued, came back here in Detroit just before graduating and worked for a number of radio stations here and did that for several years. At one point, I took a break from radio and started an internet company with my brother, Chuck Scott. Did that for several years, started the Michigan Talk Radio Network, which was a statewide talk radio network I built up in Charlevoix, Michigan, and worked for some other radio stations throughout that run. Eventually started the company that I have right now, called Michigan Digital. And in addition to operating Civic Center TV, my company also operates a live streaming channel called My Michigan TV. It's a statewide streaming television channel. And I've got the crew that works at Civic Center TV, but another 30 employees that work out of an office in Troy that do that. So had a long and exciting and fulfilling broadcast career. And maybe someday I'll even be able to retire. But right now it's too much fun.
I would like to thank you for joining. I had a lot of fun. I would also like to thank you and Miss Lisa Graff for filming. And I would also like to thank Miss Graff for composing the email and working to help coordinate for today. And Miss Nancy Putras for making this beautiful background behind us.
Very nice. Well, Max,
and
I want to
for
thank
letting us use the space.
I want to thank you very much. You've done an outstanding job.
Thank
I
you.
was thrilled to get the invitation. I wish you the best of luck, and I've got one final
you.
question for you.
Yes.
Do you want to do this for a career?
Maybe. So my ideas was either broadcasting journalism or like film creating and writing and maybe producing.
Well, I'm sure if you apply in your career what you applied to your preparation for today, you'll do really well.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks, Max.
You're welcome.